So, good evening, everyone. So, we are meeting for the 15th edition of the 5 editorials of the week series. So, in this initiative, generally we used to identify 5 important editorials which came in the Hindu in the last 1 week. And we will be discussing those editorials in detail with respect to the UPSC mains point of view. So, similarly, in this week also, we have identified 5 important editorials, and we are going to discuss those editorials now. See, the one main advantage of this initiative is generally, if we are discussing the editorials on a daily basis, what will happen? The editorials of the same topic will be repeated on the next day. Like, for example, Monday you will be having an editorial regarding forms, and Tuesday also you will be on forms. So it won't be holistic. But if we are discussing the same at the end of the week, means what will happen? We can cover one particular area in a holistic way, because whenever an issue erupts, the people will be writing editorial in the entire week regarding that issue, so that at the end of the week you can study all the editorials and we can give a holistic picture about one particular issue. One editorial may be positive, one editorial may be negative, so we'll be getting holistic picture when we see this editorial issue initiative at the end of the week. So that's why we are doing it on a weekly basis instead of doing on daily basis. So today I've identified another 5 important editorials. So let us go and see those editorials. So the first editorial for the day is about the uh, perils of deregulated and imperfect agri markets. So it is both the first editorials, the first editorial and second editorial, both editorials are related to the recently brought farm laws and the protests surrounding it and the APMC system. So we will be discussing that farm laws, the issues with respect to the recent protests and farm laws, everything. The third editorial is about the Paris Agreement, which is one of the important climate change agreement which have come in the recent times. And the fourth one is about the recent controversial decision by the Indian Council, National Council of Indian Medicine, which said that Ayurvedic patients can do surgery. And the last one is about the Ground Zero article. So this is a Ground Zero article which comes on Saturdays. So this is the second Ground Zero article which we are discussing. Already we discussed the Ground Zero article regarding toy industry in the 8th edition. So please see the 8th edition for another detailed Ground Zero article. So we have chosen another relevant Ground Zero article. So let us see the today's video. Good evening, Kalayarasan. So the first editorial for the day is about the perils of the deregulated and imperfect agri market. So it is again regarding the farm laws which was brought. It is written by Mr. Ram Kumar, who is also a professor from TIS. So here he is discussing about the problems with respect to APM. See, at one side we are having government which is telling that with this farm laws they are going to revolutionize and they are going to make the APMC is market friendly. So market is going to be the major player with respect to APMC. So at one side we are having a government which is claiming that because of this farm loss, the middleman will disappear and the freed farmers will be getting more freedom with respect to selling of their produce, and at the same time the income for the farmer is going to double. So these are all the claims which are done by the government. But on the other side, farmers are claiming that corporate players will start entering this particular agricultural marketing. If corporate players are entering the agriculture market, then it will be dangerous for the farmers, because they might take away a lot of they might exploit the farmers and will not give the real prices, and farmers are also fearing that MSP will go away from them. So both the sides are having, the government is telling that we are not going to do anything with respect to MSP. But farmers are fearing that MSP will go. So at one side the government is telling one logic, and another side farmers are protesting with another logic. So in this editorial we'll identify the logic behind both the government and the farmer side, and what are the issues behind the logic of the government. So that we will be discussing in this editorial. So in this editorial, we are just focusing on one of the formulas. There are 3 important formulas. It is only about the Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce Act 2020. So here we are having an argument from farmers and government. We will be discussing this. So here we have to note one thing. So this particular act, Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act, it enables the interstate and intrastate commerce, and it also enables the farmers to bypass the APMC. So there is one terminology called monopsony. So you have to note down this particular terminology. So monopoly means there is only one seller. If there is only one seller and there are many buyers, then it is called as monopoly, because this one seller will fix the rates at his own whims and he will try to exploit the people. But with respect to monopsonies means, in monopsonies there will be only one buyer. There will be only one buyer and multiple sellers. So that is the difference between both the terms. Okay. So we have to understand the difference between both the terms. One is monopoly and another is monopsonies. So here a government is claiming that APMCs are monopsonies. They are acting as a monopsonies. The monopsonies means the APMC is acting as a single procurer, that is single buyer from multiple farmers. So it is acting as a single buyer here, and it is also acting as a monopoly. It is also acting as a monopoly. It is when it is buying from farmer, it is acting as a monopsony because single-handedly it is procuring all the agricultural produce. It is also acting as a monopoly when it is selling the agricultural produce to the buyers, whoever the buyers are coming. Like for example, it can be a food processing industry, or it can be some other a private trader who wants to procure some agricultural goods in the large scale. With respect to buyers, are acting as monopoly. So this is the logic set by the government. Since this APMCs are acting as a monopsonies, they are dominating with respect to the procurement and price and all those things, and they are exploiting the farmers. And mandi fees is exploiting the farmers. This is the argument of the government. But if you could see the reality, actually they are not acting as monopsonies. Government is telling that APMC is monopsonies. In order to bypass the APMC, we have brought this farm laws, and we are giving the freedom for the farmers to sell their produce anywhere. So this is the logic of the government. But if you could see in details, these APMC mandis are not acting as the monopsonies. So this is the fact which is given here. So according to the fact, only 29% of the rice and 44% of the wheat is sold in the mandis. So only 29% of the produce of rice is sold in mandis, and 44% of the wheat produced is sold in mandis, and all the other things are sold by the farmers with respect to private dealers. So what government is telling that farmers, so government's argument is that farmers are selling in APMC. Okay, farmers are selling in APMC. APMC is acting as a monopsony, and it is dominating with respect to price fixtures, and it is exploiting the farmers. So by this act, government said that farmer is given freedom to sell outside APMC. So that is what the government is claiming. Farmer is having the freedom to sell outside the APMC. But if you could see in reality, only 29% of the farmers are selling their rice, and 44% of the wheat farmers are selling their wheat in the APMC, and rest all of the farmers are selling already outside only. So which means that almost 80%, 70% of the rice and 56% of the wheat is being sold outside the APMC only. How it is being sold outside? Because most of the farmers are small and marginal farmers. For them, the transport cost is very high, so they will not have enough money to come to APMC and sell. So what they are doing, they are selling it to the intermediaries. They are selling it to the intermediaries or the middlemen. So these middlemen who are procuring from the farmers are coming to APMC and selling. So this is what the reality is. A small and marginal farmer is selling it to middlemen. So that is 70% of the rice farmers and 56% of the wheat farmers are selling their produce to middlemen because they couldn't afford the transportation cost to bring the produce to the APMC. And so middlemen are playing only low rate. These middlemen are indirectly selling the produce to APMC for a higher rate. From this APMC, for further higher rate, the other retailers are coming and buying. So if you could see, there are many layers in between added, so the price of the food produce is rising. The price which we pay for 1 kg of tomato is not being given to the farmer because of the lot of middlemen and this middle person. So government's logic also is being broken here because middlemen are already exploiting the farmers. So what this author is telling is, we are, instead of making the farmers to bypass APMC, we should focus and we should remove this middlemen. So government should have taken steps to remove this middleman and allowed the farmers to directly sell into APMC, and then they should have brought in the reforms with respect to APMCs. So they should have brought in the reforms in the mandis, they should have brought in the reforms in the APMCs, and they should have removed the middlemen instead of bringing in this law. So that is what the author is telling. Even if the APMCs are being so according to this new law, private markets are also will be emerging. Even though private markets are coming in the future, what will happen? The same middleman will procure from the farmer, and that middleman will come and only will be selling in the private markets. So because of the law, private market came, but still farmers will not be selling it in the private markets because the same middleman will procure from the small and marginal farmer. He will be giving lower price to farmers, and he will be selling in the private market also. So the argument of the government is broken here according to the author, because so this law is not going to benefit both the government and the farmers. It is going to benefit only the middlemen. So that is what the logic given by the author here. So the rest is sold to the private traders or dealers. So why most of the farmers are not bringing it to the APMC means, firstly, in India we are having very less number of mandis. So why the small and marginal farmer is not coming directly to APMC and instead he is selling to the middleman? and then middleman is coming to and selling the APMC. Why this is happening? Because the first reason is India is having very less APMCs. See, according to the National Agricultural Commission's recommendation, India needs 41,000 mandis all over. So mandi is nothing but a market where the farmers have to sell their produce, and buyers, they have to come to this market and buy it. So it is acting as it is just a market. Study about the APMC Act 2003. We had a model APMC Act 2003 study about it. So according to the National Agricultural Commission's recommendation, India needs 41,000 APMCs, but only we are having only 6,330 APMCs. So which is almost 7 times lesser. We need 7 times more APMCs. So India is having very less APMCs. So which means that APMCs are not accessible. APMC, most of the APMCs are far away for the farmers because of the less number. If there are more APMC, then it will be nearby to the farmer. According to the same National Agricultural Commission, it states that there should be a mandi within 1 hour of travel. If a farmer is putting all his goods and taking it to the mandi, the travel time should be only 1 hour. Within the 1 hour's distance, there should be an APMC for every farmer. So that is what the National Agriculture Commission says. But that is not the reality because of low number of APMCs. So government should have taken steps to increase the number of APMCs. So another thing is it is uneconomical transport, because since the farmers are not having enough surplus, since they are small and marginal farmers, they are not able to afford the transportation cost. This menace will continue even if the private players emerge. Okay, so instead of focusing on bypassing APMC, reform APMC and increase the productivity of the farmer. So government should have taken steps to increase the productivity of the farmer. Okay, so another logic now. So according to the government, they are telling that they are, for the first time, they are trying to bypass it. They are giving the rights to farmers to sell outside APMC. But that is not the reality. Already 18 states in India have allowed the farmers in their particular states to sell their produce outside the APMC. So already these rights have been given in the 18 states. For example, in Tamil Nadu, we are having something called Uravar Sandai. Okay, Uravar Sandai. In Tamil Nadu, we are having this Uravar Sandai model where farmers can directly come and sell without going to the APMC. So like that, 18 states have already having this model. And in those 18 states, already private markets have emerged. Even though the private market have emerged, they haven't given the good. So as per the government, if the private markets come, the farmers will be getting good prices. But even though in these 18 states private markets came, they didn't provide any good prices to farmers. Okay, so that is the logic here. In 19 states, there is a provision for direct purchase. In 19 states, government directly purchases from farmer, but still private investment is not increasing, but still the farmers are not getting the enough number of profit. So the second point which the author says is okay. Now we have brought this act. Now private markets started to emerge. Okay, now private markets are coming. Even though the private markets are coming, there will be huge transaction cost which will be spent by the private market. Any market comes, even if the private sector, let us take an example that company A is starting a private market. If this company A is starting a private market, they will also charge the transaction cost. They will also charge the collection cost and operation cost. Any market to emerge, there will be some levy imposed by this market on the people who are coming and selling the goods, and there will be some levy imposed by this market for those coming and buying the goods. So for the both sellers and buyers, there will be some levy, because only with that levy only this market can ensure the independent functioning, because a private player is coming. Private player needs profit. APMCs are managed by the government, so it can be loss making, but private markets cannot be loss making. So private player needs profit, so he will be levying the charges, even though the government is telling that mandi charges are high, and because of this high mandi charges, the cost of the goods are rising and farmers are getting the lower price. So see the reality here. If this we saw that small and marginal farmers are here. Since the smaller marginal farmers are selling it to the middleman, and this middleman is coming and selling in the APMC. So this middleman, what is happening? This middleman have to pay this mandi charge. Okay, he have to pay the mandi charge for him to sell the goods in the mandi. But what is happening? Since the mandi charges are high, what this middleman is doing? He is compensating the high mandi charges by giving low amount to the farmers. So government is telling that if this APMC is not there, the mandi charges will go. But even though a private company like A is coming, that company also is going to levy the mandi charge only, because the collection cost and operation cost is very high. And small and marginal, like more the small and marginal farmers, more number of transaction will take place. If there is more number of transaction, then more people will be employed. So anyhow, there is going to be the mandi charge. So more cost will offset the benefits of decline in the mandi taxes. Even though the mandi taxes are being declined, that is going to offset any benefit uh, because the transaction costs are will be levied by the private player. Private player is not do any charity. So that is another argument which the author is telling. And the third one, if you could see, in most of the states, especially in Punjab and Haryana, they are the largest states. So we'll see about the Punjab and Haryana in the next editorial. So these two states are having highest number of transactions in mandi. Punjab and Haryana is the largest agricultural producing state, so naturally they will be having the highest transaction in mandi. So mandi taxes collected by the APMCs in Punjab and Haryana are reinvested by the APMC to improve the market infrastructure. So Punjab and Haryana APMCs are investing the money collected through mandi taxes within the APMC to improve the market infrastructure. If market infrastructure is improved, then the transaction will be enabled. Then it is going to benefit the farmer only. Similarly, in Punjab, the market committee fee is being levied by the APMCs, and rural development fee is also levied by the APMCs. In Punjab, this APMC will be levying the market committee fee and rural development fee. This rural development fee and market committee fee are collected by APMC, and they are invested in where? For constructing rural roads. They are investing it to construct the roads which are connecting the APMC. Okay, so that the transportation increase. Only if you are having good roads to APMC, more farmers can come for health purposes and water provision in the rural area. So this Punjab government is investing the money collected through APMC for improving the rural infrastructure. So this APMC taxes are indirectly it is benefiting the farmers living in that particular locality. And so this is this is how the author is busting the arguments given by the government. So whatever arguments government gave, that is APMCs, farmers can bypass APMCs, no, that is also busted. Private investment is going to increase, no, that is also busted because of the huge transaction cost. Then mandi taxes. So mandi taxes are exploiting farmers, no, that is also busted. Now mandi taxes are benefiting the farmers. Now let us come to the fears of the farmers. So farmers are fearing that if private investors start coming in the marketing means, then government will not implement the MSPs. So MSP is a very big fear for the farmers, because Punjab and Haryana farmers are hugely dependent on the MSP with respect to the in their particular state. So all these farmers are cultivating because of the MSP promised by the government, and government is also dependent on these farmers to procure goods at MSP from this particular state. But still there are many signs from the government which increases the fear. So there are many instances in the past which instills the fears in the minds of the farmers that MSP might go away in the future. One is, the input cost for the farming is rising. The input cost for the farming is rising. One side input cost for farming is rising, so government is not parallelly increasing the MSP to match the input cost. So that is one of the huge concern of the farmer. And we all know that National Agricultural Commission, which was headed by the National Agricultural Commission, which was headed by Mr. M.S. Swaminathan, he recommended that MSP should be calculated using C2 formula. But still government is following only A2 plus FL formula. So let us discuss what is this A2 plus FL and C2. So MSP is generally calculated by three ways. One is A2 method, then A2 plus FL method, then C2 method. So it is being calculated by Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices. CACP is calculating the MSP. A2 cost means, while calculating the MSP, government will consider only the input cost. Okay, government will consider only the input cost, whatever input cost spent by the farmers for these seeds, fertilizers, and for irrigation and various other things. Only the input costs are taken into account when they are calculating A2. In A2 plus F and the labor cost, whichever labor they are employing. But in some farms, what will happen? The farmers itself, they will be working. The family members of the farmers will be working there, and they will not be getting any salary. So in A2 plus FR, what they will do? They will take this A2 value for the inputs, and they will also add the family labor cost. So they will also take into account the family labor cost, and then they will calculate the MSP. C2 here means what is happening? They are taking the A2, they are taking the FL, and they are also calculating the rent paid by the farmer for the land if he is a tenant. So the interest paid by the farmer, if you see, any farmer will have farm loans. If that farm loans, that farmer will be paying interest. So they will take into account the interest, they will take into account the rent and all additional charges. They will also take into account the transport cost. So they will take into account the additional three costs, and then they will calculate in the C2 method. So M.S. Swaminathan committee said that MSP should be calculated in the C2 method, but what government has done, so M.S. Swaminathan said that MSP should be C2 plus 50%. Okay, that is 1.5% of C2. So that is what the M.S. Swaminathan committee said. Whenever the government is calculating MSP, first they have to calculate C2, and then they have to fix MSP 50% higher than the C2. So if at all the C2 is coming as 100 rupees, means they have to fix the MSP at 150 rupees. But what government did, instead of taking C2, they have taken only A2 plus FL. So now they are fixing A2 plus That is 1.5% of A2 plus FL. So there is a huge demand and government is reluctant to take C2. So this is also creating one fear. At one side, government is not increasing the MSP with respect to the increase in the input cost. On the other side, they are chosen only A2 plus FL and not C2. On another side, this Commission for Agriculture Cost and Produce are recommended that to end the open-ended procurement. They said that government should start procuring open-ended procurement. Open-ended procurement means in MSP. So what is this MSP? MSP is minimum support price of the government. So government says to farmers that whenever the prices of the goods and commodities in the market falls below MSP, means government will come and procure those goods at MSP. If at all the market price of the rice is falling below the MSP, means government will provide MSP and procure the goods in order to save the farmers. So that is what the MSP is. Government is procuring goods at the MSP for the PDS system, public distribution system and ration system. Okay. So government is not having any limit. Government is not having any limit with respect to MSP. And whichever farmer is coming and be giving to government will buy at MSP. So that is the logic. So there is no limit here. But what the CAPCP recently recommended is that this is called as open-ended procurement. Open-ended procurement is without any limit, government will procure unlimitedly. But this recently CACP has recommended that this open-ended procurement should stop. So this recommendation of CACP is again has given the fears among the farmers that open-ended procurement is going to stop and government will fix with limits with respect to MSP and that will affect the farmers. So these are all the fears which the farmers are having in their mind. So even though government said that MSP is going to continue, farmers are still having fears because of all these signs. So government should come and alleviate. And another important fear is that if at all private player is coming and starting the market, then what government will do? Anyways, farmers will be selling in the private market also. So the market price will be stable and the price will not fall below MSP. So there won't be any requirement for the government to come and procure in MSP. So farmers are fearing that if at all private players are coming, initially they will be good, but after some time they might become profit oriented and they might start exploiting farmers by giving only lower prices. So if at all private players are coming and mandis are weakening, then surely MSP also will weaken. Government also will be reluctant to procure in MSP. So this is another. Even though government is telling that they are not going to remove MSP, farmers are fearing that if at all private players are coming, MSP might stop in the future because there won't be any incentive for the government to procure. So these are all the fears of the farmer. Because of all these fears only, farmers are coming and protesting. So what government should do now? Government, what they should do means, in both the editorials have given the recommendation. Please note it down. So instead of just taking only law and order actions against the farmer, government can have a conciliatory approach and they can create more MSP. See, as per this data, 7 times, so India is having 7 times less number of MSP. So they have to increase the number of MSP. So we need more mandis, sorry, not MSPs, mandis. So we need more mandis. There is a necessity for 41,000 mandis, but we are having only 6,000 mandis. So government should increase the number of mandis. We need more mandis, which are widespread and which are spread to all over India. These mandis should be spread all over India. It should be widespread. Okay. There should be more mandis and these mandis should be widespread all over the India. That mandi should be robust. Robust means what? It should have state-of-art infrastructure. All the infrastructure things should be latest and it should be farmer-friendly and it should also be competitive. That is, it should not act as a monopoly. It should allow the new player to enter. Okay. They should not be restricting the new player to enter. They should also allow the new player to enter. So instead of bypassing the MSME, regulate the MSME and make it more farmer-friendly, because only if the sorry, I'm talking about MSME, it is APMC. Instead of bypassing the APMCs, government should focus on creating more number of APMCs, widespread APMCs spread all over geographic location with robust infrastructure and competitive mandis. Competitive mandis means new players should come in, because in this mandis what they are happening, the already existing brokers and traders in the mandis, they are not allowing new buyers to come in. Okay, so anything is happening, they are buying and they are fixing the rate. So it should not be like that. It should be competitive. It should not be monopoly. At the same time, only if the APMCs are sustainable, then only we can ensure the farmer security and food security, because MSP and APMCs are needed for both farmer and for the government in order to ensure the food security. So that is what the author is telling. Note down this keyword: more widespread, robust, competitive mandis are required. The second editorial is also a continuation of the first editorial only. So in this editorial, the author is talking about the same issue which is surrounding the farmers' fears. The author is telling that farmers need not fear. So in this editorial, they are telling that there is no reason. So farmers need not fear because government will not abolish MSP because government are dependent on MSP. Since government are dependent on MSP, they will not abolish it. That is what the author is telling. Again, this author also an economist, economic professor. So let us see the editorial. So instead of government taking law and order approach, they should tell, see, what author is telling this, there is a necessity for food security in India. Since there is a necessity for food security in India, government needs MSP for procure the food. There is a necessity for the government to procure food because they have to give it in PDS system. Since there is a necessity of the PDS system and food security, government will procure the food from farmers, because so since they are in the necessity for procurement from farmer, they will implement MSP and MSP will not go. So this is the reality. So this argument government should take it to farmers instead of instead of demonizing the farmers, as they should go and alleviate the fears of the farmers with the proper communication and conciliation. So that is what the author is telling here. So if you could see in reality why Punjab and Haryana farmers are protesting, that we have to understand. Because Punjab and Haryana farmers are heavily dependent on MSP. If you could see the data, 88% of the paddy sold. So in previous article, we saw the all India figures. In all India figures only, we saw that. Here Punjab Haryana figures only we are selling. 88% of the rice and 70% of the wheat are procured by MSP. So if there is 100 kg of rice produced in Punjab, means 88 kg of rice is procured by government through APMC at MSP. Okay, government is procuring 88 kg. If there is 100 kg of production in Punjab, means government is procuring 88% of total production in Punjab through APMC at MSP. So if you could see other states, in other states the average is only 44% and 23%, but in Punjab and Haryana it is 88% and 70%, which shows clearly that Punjab and Haryana are the maximum, the states which are getting maximum benefited by the MSPs, and they are maximum dependent on this MSP. So that is what the reality is. Because naturally, why this is happening? Because Punjab and Haryana are the largest producers of food grains in India. They are only the highest producers of rice and wheat. So that's why this particular statistics. So since they are able to produce at the large scale, and since the land fragmentation rate is very low in Punjab and Haryana, they are able to increase the productivity and they are able to produce in the large scale, and that's why government instead of depending on the small productions in the various states, they can depend on Punjab and Haryana for bulk procurement. They can easily procure bulk from Punjab and Haryana, then they can distribute it all over India. So that is what the logic is. Okay, so why Punjab and Haryana farmers are protesting? Because they are the maximum beneficiary of MSP and they are having the fears that MSP will go, like we discussed in the previous editorials. So any disruption, whether it is real, so any disruption, whether it is real disruption or it is perceived means farmer thinking that it might go. Here what is happening? MSP is not going. Farmers are thinking that it might go. They are in the fears. So even if there is a real threat or if there is a perceived threat, there will be protest, there will be agitation, there will be opposition. So in that case, what government should do? Government should take a proper communication and conciliation. They have to sit with farmers and talk to them instead of directly taking any action. So only dialogues and diplomacy are going to solve the issue. So government should make it clear to the farmers. See, government needs MSP because procurement, MSP procurement to cater the needs of public distribution system through ration shops and National Food Security Act. Because of these two reasons, there is a necessity for the government to procure from the PDS. Okay, and almost 80 crore people are dependent on the PDS system. Government will never remove this PDS system and public distribution system. And NFSA means National Food Security Act says that each and every individual in India are entitled for 5 kg of rice, 3 kg of wheat, and 1 kg of cereal. So each and every individual is having the right to procure it. Oh, each and every individual who is living below poverty line. Okay, so on this, in this criteria, 80 crore people are already dependent on PDS. 80 crore people means 80 crore people are dependent there. In order to ensure their food security, PDS will stay. If PDS is staying, then procurement will stay. If procurement is staying, then MSP will stay. Okay, so that is what the logic which is being said by the author. So why MSP will say, why not government will say, whether government will, if there are two markets, there is an APMC market and there is a private market. In which market do you think that there will be costly rates because of profit? Naturally, private market will fix the costly rates. So government, when they are procuring the rice and wheat for the PDS system, where they will go and procure, whether they will go to APMC or whether they will go to a private market. They will go to APMC because in APMC only the prices will be at the right level for the government to procure. So that is what the logic is. So private market also will not allow the MSP to stay, because they will say that they will only fix the charges. So naturally, APMCs are going to be the choice of the government. And 88 crore migrant laborers, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, are dependent now. So totally 88 crore people are dependent. So surely there is going to be MSP and no need to fear. And if you could see the statistics, 40% of the total production of rice and 32% of total production of wheat was procured for the public distribution system at MSP by the government. So since the government is procuring, there is no need to have any fear. That is what the author is telling, because government is also dependent on MSP. So now another thing. So government through these farm laws have opened up the private market by one law, and they have also relaxed the provisions of Essential Commodities Act and allowed the storage houses to and private and corporate sectors to hoard. Okay, hoard the food producers only in the exceptional condition. The Essential Commodities Act is going to come. Now it is relaxed. So because of these two things, what is going to happen? This will lead to hoarding. So since earlier the storage industries will be in fear, and the food processing industries and all those people who are having the warehouses, they are in fear that if we are holding, Essential Commodities Act will be applied on them and action will be taken. Now since the Essential Commodities Act is relaxed, there is going to be a possibility of hoarding in the future. So if there is a possibility of hoarding, then surely price will shoot up. Then why these traders want to hoard things? Because எதுக்கு வந்து பதுக்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறாங்க. ஏன் பதுக்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறாங்கன்னா, விலை ஏறிடுங்கிற விலை ஏற்றணும், அதிக விலைக்கு லாபத்துக்கு விற்கணும் தான் பதுக்கணும்னே நினைக்கிறாங்க. ஸோ வை தே வாண்ட் டு ஹோல்ட்? பிகாஸ் தே வாண்ட் டு செல் அட் தி ஹை prices. So surely with the easing of Essential Commodities Act, the hoarding will come and price will rise. So if that is the case, this condition will not be beneficial for the government also, because government also will be government also doesn't want this particular situation. So if you could see, now it is clear that Punjab and Haryana farmers are dependent on government for MSP, and government is dependent on Punjab and Haryana farmers for rice and wheat, because they are the largest producer, because they have to give in PDS. Because of the PDS, they are dependent on Punjab and Haryana farmers. So government is dependent on them, and they are dependent on the government. If they are both having this mutual relationship, then instead of making this issue big, they have to try to solve it. So government should come and solve this issue. That is what the author is telling. So what is the way forward? Alleviate the fears in the minds of the farmers and create more awareness. You call the farmers for the talk, alleviate the fears in their mind, take this awareness and talk about the reality. Then bring in the regulatory mechanism. So now government decided to bring the private markets. Okay, if at all the private markets are coming, that private market should be regulated. So there should be a regulator. See, there are banks. So we are having RBI to regulate banks. There is stock exchange. We are having SEBI to regulate stock exchange. Similarly, there should be a regulator who is going to regulate both the APMC and the private markets. Okay, there should be this regulator who is doing the regulation, because we have to check the private markets also. If there is no regulator, then what will happen? At the same time, government also planning to bring contract farming. Even there should also be a regulator. The same regulator should also take care of the contract farming in such a way that these contracts are not being exploited by the corporate houses to exploit the farmers. So there should be a regulator whose main aim is to protect farmers from the private markets and from the contract farming, so that all the contract is in the farmer friendly way. So government should create a regulator now. So that is the need of the time now. So according to one of the most famous economists, so Barbara Harris is one of the famous economists. She did a lot of research with respect to the Indian agricultural market and Indian agriculture. Her specialty is Indian agriculture only. So she once said the famous quote: deregulated and imperfect market is always dangerous than regulated and imperfect. So here we are having APMC. This APMC is regulated, but it is imperfect. So this is a regulated imperfect market, but if the private players are coming, that might not be regulated. That will be deregulated, and that might also be imperfect. We cannot say it is going to be perfect or imperfect. So deregulated and imperfect market is dangerous than the regulated imperfect. So if you are having a regulated imperfect, try to make it perfect instead of removing it. So that is what the logic here. So these are all the two important editorial which came related to the farm laws. The third editorial is about the Paris Climate Agreement. So this is one of the interesting editorials. Paris Agreement is no panacea. So if you could note, there is this new terminology. I would like to add one thing. Many people are thinking that reading editorials is of no importance. And when because I'm reading Hindu is also no important, because Hindu is having complicated words like this, like panacea. So what is this? So if this such complicated words will confuse the people, will confuse the aspirants whenever they are reading the newspaper. But if you could see the reality, This is a question which was asked by the UPSC in the 2013 essay. So this was an essay question came in the 2013. See the title, Science and Technology is the panacea for the growth and security of the nation. Only if you know the meaning for the word panacea, you can attend this question. If you are not knowing the meaning for the word called panacea, you can't attend it. So that is the purpose of editorials. Because if you are reading editorials, you would have seen the if you are reading the editorials, you could have seen this word, and once you are seeing this word, your job is to what? Your job is to take dictionary and see it. Your job is to take dictionary and see it and know the meaning. So you do this exercise whenever you are reading Hindu editorial. Whenever you are finding a new word, what you have to do means you have to take the dictionary and read the meaning of the word. Read the two types of meanings. There are two meanings for every word. One is dictionary meaning, and another is contextual meaning. You first read the dictionary meaning and understand the meaning of the word, then read the contextual meaning. Contextual meaning means what is the role of the word in this particular sentence. So you have to understand the role of the word in the particular sentence, then only your comprehending skill will improve. If your comprehending skill is improving, then it is going to benefit you in the CSAT examination, because comprehensions are getting tougher day by day, and Tamil medium students will not have comprehension in Tamil like Hindi medium students, and we have to read only the English comprehension. So that is what the difficulty here is. So whenever you are finding the new word, go to take the dictionary and understand both the meanings of contextual meaning and the dictionary meaning. Panacea is something that will cure all the diseases. It is one solution for all the problems. Panacea na ஒரே மருந்து, எல்லா பிரச்சனைக்கும் ஒரே மருந்து, அதான் வந்து panacea. So something that will cure all the diseases, solve all the problems and difficulty, and it is a universal remedy. இதுதான் எல்லாத்துக்கும் ஒரே மருந்துன்னு நம்ம எதை சொல்றோமோ அதான் panacea. So that is the meaning for the word. So in this article, the author is telling about Paris Agreement is no panacea. So what the most of the people in the world are telling that the Paris Agreement, which came in 2015, Paris Agreement which came in 2015 to regulate the climate change, is the one-stop solution. If you are implementing it, that is good. But what this author is telling that it is not a panacea. Paris Agreement pattadada. So that is what the author is telling. So there are two types of opposition for Paris Agreement. Generally, Paris Agreement and the climate change friendly measures are very important, and we have to implement the Paris Agreement. That is true. But still, there is some criticism associated with the Paris Agreement. That is what we are going to see here. There are two types of people who are criticizing the Paris Agreement. So let us understand that clearly before going into the editorial. First type of people who are criticizing Paris Agreements are those people who are not believing in climate change. Climate change on the hoax. Climate change is not true. Climate change on the பொய்யான ஒரு ஆர்குமெண்ட். கிளைமேட் சேஞ்ச் வந்து ஒரு பொய்ங்கிறது, நம்ம கிளைமேட் சேஞ்ச் நடக்கவே இல்லைன்னு நினைக்கிற ஆட்கள் டொனால்டு ட்ரம்ப் மாதிரி ஆட்கள். ஸோ பீப்புள் லைக் டொனால்டு ட்ரம்ப் who think climate change is hoax, they are the first people who don't understand science. People who don't understand science are the first type. So this criticism in this editorial is not the first type, it is of second type. Second type is that they are finding the problems. So second type of people who are critiquing Paris Agreement is those people who believe in science, those people who trust in who understand climate change, and those people who are in the genuine interest to solve the global issue to save the earth, and they are criticizing Paris Agreement, stating that it is not enough. It is not enough. So this is a different types of criticism. So this author TP Srinivasan is an economist, and he was also part of the UNFCCC. He is criticizing that this Paris Agreement is not enough. We have to do more. So this second type of criticism only, which we are going to discuss today, not the first type. So Paris Agreement, a reality check. So what are all the problems with respect to the Paris Agreement? So before going into this editorial, someone also asked what is Paris Agreement. Adha solla vara, wait pannunga Balakrishnan, adha solren. So in this editorial itself, author has explained what is Paris Agreement. In the editorial படிச்சிருந்தாலே அதிலே Paris Agreement பத்தி இருக்கும். இந்த editorial author என்ன சொல்லியிருக்கார்? First one, he is talking about the evolution of the climate change and various climate change conferences which has evolved all over the years. So first one, so he is also talking about the various climate change conferences which came and various agreements which came for the climate change and environment over the years. The first and foremost conference which talked about the environment. So till 1972, there was no talk about environment in the general word. So people were not thinking about the environmental damage or environmental destruction till 1972 Stockholm Conference. In 1972, Stockholm Conference was an eye-opener where they talked about the environmental problems, and the Rio Conference, Rio de Janeiro of 1992. So these are all the two important conferences in this the time period between the 2 years. in the time period, the time period between the 20 years between these two conferences, one is the Stockholm Conference and the Rio Conference of 1992, there were a lot of evidences which talked about the anthropogenic emissions. So anthropogenic emissions means the CO2 emissions by humans. The concept of greenhouse effect and the concept of global warming started to come into the global politics and the world picture only after 1972. And between 1972 to 1992, in this 20 years, we had so much evidences and we had so much research in this particular area, and we found that CO2 is creating a problem. Emission of CO2 by humans is creating this problem called greenhouse effect, and this greenhouse effect is creating a problem called global warming. This global warming is creating a problem called climate change. Because of this global warming, because of the புவி வெப்பமடைதல், the temperature of the earth is rising, and that is leading to the climate change. Okay, so that is the main thing. So this is the thing which emerged in this particular 20 years. So in 1922, so in this 20 years, everything is came. In 1922, we decided to have a strong political action. See, this 1972, this is a special year. In the Stockholm Conference, our former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi also participated in that. Only after attending that conference only, she came to India and enacted a lot of environmental friendly reforms like Wildlife Protection Act, Environmental Protection Act, Water Act, Air Act, everything was enacted. She brought in a 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act and added a DPSP and a fundamental duty which talks about environment. So everything is an effect of the Stockholm Conference only. And she also gave a wonderful speech in the Stockholm Conference. Go on Google and see the speech. So in 1992, after we got all the evidences regarding the Stockholm Conference, we decided to conduct a Earth Summit. So Earth Summit, so Rio Summit is also called as Earth Summit. Earth Summit took place in Rio de Janeiro. Rio nonna neenga vandu Big Boss contestant nenichikadinga. So it is Rio de Janeiro of Brazil. So Brazil odeya city la Earth Summit nadandhathu in 1992, and the Earth Summit is considered to be one of the phenomenal and landmark moment with respect to the climate change, because a body called UNFCC, United Nations Framework Convention for UNFCC, was created, and it acted as a model instrument. So now we found one big thing. Enna kandupidichirkom, CO2 is creating all the emissions. Okay, now we found that CO2 is creating all the emissions. Why the CO2 is emitted? CO2 is emitted because of vehicles. So vehicular pollutions one. Then the industries. So then the power plants. So these are all the three things which are emitting especially coal power plant. These are all the three important things which are emitting the CO2. So if you could see, those nations which are developed, will have large number of vehicles, would have large number of industry, because only because of industrialization they are developed, and they will be having a large power plant, because developed nations will be having the huge demand for electricity, and they will be having a large number of power plant. So only developed nations will be having the large number of emissions. So developed nations, so like the nations, if you could take the example like USA, UK, Russia, France, all these nations, Canada, Australia, all these nations are developed nations. They got independence USA got independence in the 18th century. UK was never under colonial rule. USA, UK, Russia, France, Canada, they got, UK never was under, Russia, France, Canada, they all got independence in the early 18th century and 19th century. They got independence earlier, and they started their developed journey. For 200 years, they were in the developmental path, and they were in the industrialization path, and they polluted the entire world by emitting the CO2. Whatever CO2 which we are having today, and whatever global warming which has been done now, is being done by these particular nations called major developed nations. They industrialized and they did all the pollution, and they are developed now. So they are the main reason for whatever global warming now. So now we are having another group of nations called developing nations. These developing nations got independence only after Second World War. Only after 1950s only they all got independence. Like India got in 1947, and various other nations got independence only after the Second World War, and they started their developmental journey only in this particular period. So they are starting the developmental journey now. So because they are starting the developmental journey, they will be planning to have more industries, more coal power plants, and more vehicles, and they will be aspiring to emit more, because they need emission. So only after we are emitting, we can bring in the economic development. So that is the logic which we are following now. Only with the industries we can achieve the GDP growth and economic development. So now in 1992 there was a huge debate. There was this huge debate that now in this entire world, both developed nations are emitting and developing nations are also emitting. Developed nations are already developed, and whatever emissions they are doing is the luxury emissions. Whatever emissions they are doing is So now let us come. So in 1992, we are having two group of people here. One is developed, another is developing. Okay. So developed nations are, they both are emitting. Now developed nations are already developed, and they whatever emissions they are doing is a luxury emission. But developing nations, whatever emissions are going to do is not luxury. See, their emission is going to be the survival emissions. Just a second. Whatever emissions they are going to do is a survival emission. This survival emission, because only if they are emitting now, they can achieve the path of development, whatever these nations have achieved. Now in 1992, what these developed nations are telling is that everyone should start emitting. If they are telling that everyone should stop emitting, means everyone should reduce the vehicles, everyone should take actions against the industries, and everyone should take act against everything. இது போங்க இல்ல, ஏன்னா 200 வருஷமா நீ you polluted, 200 years you are polluting, 200 years you are emitting, and you created all the problem. Now you are asking us also to stop the emissions. You take the lead, you reduce more. So in 1992, this is what it was decided. Both the nations are emitting now, so both the nations are having the common responsibility to take action against the, they are having the common responsibility, they are having the common responsibility to stop the emissions. But if you could see, developed nations emissions are luxury and developing nations emissions are survival. So what these developing nations are asking me, they are asking for a carbon space. Carbon space means give us space to emit. So நாங்க இப்போ pollute பண்ணிக்கிறோம், we will pollute now, you start reducing your emissions in order to save the world and give us some space, we will also develop and we will also stop it. So this is called equity principle. Constitutional article 14 is also having this equity principle. We are having this common responsibility to reduce, but you have more high targets and we will have low targets, and you have binding targets and we will have non-binding targets. And so that is what the argument was going. We will have the non-binding target, and finally what they said was, you fund all the things. So in order to reduce the emissions, we need renewable energy, we need new technology, we need the filters in the industries, we need to bring electric vehicles. So all these things need technology, all this technology needs funding. So whatever funding needed should be given only by the developed nation. So you borne everything, because you only polluted the entire world for 200 years. So we are having common responsibility, but it is going to be differentiated. Differentiated means what? It is common responsibility but differentiated. That is called as common but differentiated responsibility. So common responsibility of reducing the emissions, but differentiated because developed nations are luxury and developing nations are in survival mode. So they are going to have binding targets, they are going to fund the entire transition, and they are also going to have the reduce more. Developing nation will also have less. This is called as common but differentiated responsibility, also called as polluters pay principle. There is this principle called polluters pay. So based on this common but differentiated responsibilities and polluted pay principles, we brought in this a new thing called UNFCCC. And this UNFCCC said that we will be soon making a final protocol. So based on this protocol, we are going to have common but differentiated responsibility with the principle of polluters pay. So that is what is being discussed. And this model instrument was finalized in 1992 in the Rio conference. Based on this Rio conference, in Kyoto Protocol 1995, we brought in this Kyoto Protocol was brought. Kyoto is a nation in the Japan, and this Kyoto Protocol was brought, and it stated that we are going to have common but differentiated responsibility and polluters pay principle. And they created the nation annex nations. So they created Annex 1 and Annex 2, and they created non-annex nations. So differentiated the nations into Annex 1, Annex 2, and non-annex nations. Annex 1 and Annex 2 nations are developed nations, and non-annex nations are developing nations. So Annex 1 and Annex 2 nations will be having the binding targets, and they are going to fund everything, and non-annex nations are going to just supported by having non-binding targets. And UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, UNFCCC is going to be the global body where all the nations will come and meet, and they will discuss about the protocol which we are going to follow. It is just an organization where every people will come and meet and discuss what is going to be the future. So every year they will meet and discuss. So that is UNFCCC. UNFCCC is a conference where every year they will meet and discuss about the future regarding the climate change. So they met in 1995. Sorry, they met in 1997, actually, not 95. They met in 1997 in Kyoto, Japan, and they decided that they are going to bring the Kyoto Protocol. But in this negotiation, in 1992, all the developing nation accepted, but we all know how bad this USA is. USA is always exploitative nation only. They will go out of every agreement. They started to weaken this because according to this, USA will be having the more responsibility with respect to the climate change. Now, what USA did, they didn't want to take this responsibility, so they started to weaken this concept and they withdrew from the Kyoto Protocol and they participated in the Copenhagen Accord. So they participated in the Copenhagen Accord. So Copenhagen is another meeting, which it is a capital of Denmark, and they met in the Copenhagen in 2009, and they decided the future. In that conference, the USA again took the role, and they brought in a new idea which destabilized this concept of common but differentiated responsibilities and polluters pay principle. So in Paris Agreement, when they met in 2015, so USA started to weaken the concept of common but differentiated responsibility and polluters pay. So these are all called as Rio principles or Rio spirit. This Rio spirit was destabilized by USA in the Berlin summit and also in the Copenhagen summit. And finally, after Berlin summit, we had a weak protocol called Kyoto Protocol. That Kyoto Protocol also was not implemented successfully. Now we had another Copenhagen Accord, and we decided to bring a new protocol to replace the Kyoto Protocol. Since Kyoto Protocol was not successful, we decided to bring a new one in the Copenhagen meeting in 2009, and we decided that by 2015 we'll have a new protocol. In that new protocol is called as Paris Agreement. So this Paris Agreement is the one which is going to succeed the Kyoto Protocol, and this is going to lay the framework for climate change and emissions for 2020 to 35. So this 15 years, this is going to set the rules and protocols for the climate change emissions. But in this protocol, we are not having these two principles. Okay, Paris agreements, instead of this two principle, they brought in a new principle called INDC, intended nationally determined contribution. Intended nationally determined constitution says that each nation should voluntarily come and say whatever steps they can take. See, in Kyoto Protocol, we had the binding targets for the developed nation and non-binding targets for developing nation. But here, what they are telling, they are changing the argument to INDC. In INDC, what they are telling, any nation can voluntarily come and say what they are going to do. உங்களால முடிஞ்சது பண்ணிக்கோங்க. அதான் வந்து voluntary. Intended. What is your intention? அந்த இன்டென்ஷனுக்கு ஏற்ற மாதிரி நேஷனலி டிட்டர்மைண்டு, நீங்களே உங்களால் முடிஞ்சதையும் உங்களோட எண்ணத்துக்கு ஏற்ற மாதிரி ஒன்று முடிவு பண்ணிக்கோங்க. என்ன கான்ட்ரிபியூஷன் பண்ண போறீங்கிறது நீங்களே முடிவு பண்ணிக்கோங்க. அதான் இன்டெண்டட் நேஷனலி டிட்டர்மைண்ட் கான்ட்ரிபியூஷன்ஸ். ஸோ பேஸ்ட் ஆன் திஸ் இன்டெண்டட் நேஷனலி டிட்டர்மைண்ட் பிரின்சிபல், voluntary contributions were accepted. Based on this voluntary contribution, each nation will come and voluntarily say what they can do. So like for example, there are totally 150 nations, means all this 150 nation will say what they can do. ஸோ இது எல்லாத்தையும் லிஸ்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க. இது எல்லாத்தையும் லிஸ்ட் பண்ணி இதை ஃபைனலைஸ் பண்ணிடுவாங்க. உங்களால் என்ன பண்ண முடியுமோ அதை பண்ணுங்க. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு திங் வி brought. ஸோ தட் இஸ் இஸ் வாலண்டரி கான்ட்ரிபியூஷன் அண்ட் ஷிஃப்டிங் அவே ஃப்ரம் த பிரின்சிபல். ஸோ this shifting away from common but differentiated responsibility and polluters pay principle is one of the biggest weakness of the Paris Agreement. So again, this author is criticizing this, whatever NDCs. So நிறைய nations வந்து after 2015 they started submitting the NDCs. Each nation submitted its own NDCs after 2015. So India also submitted our own NDC. So go to Google and search NDC of India. India also gave a list of 8 NDCs. நம்ம வந்து ஒரு 8 contributions வந்து நம்ம பண்றோம்னு சொன்னோம். Like for example, increasing the non-fossil fuel electricity to 40%, then afforestation to reduce the CO2 emissions, like that various list we gave. So go and Google it and study. And whatever NDC submitted by various nations is not enough to curb the 2°C. See, according to the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, there is an organization called Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which does research regarding the environment and all these issues. According to that, what they stated was, if at all the climate is increasing, so let pre-industrial levels, if at all the climate is increasing more than 2% of pre-industrial levels. Pre-industrial levels means 18th century. In 18th century only we started this industrial revolution. Before, only after the industrial revolution only we started to have the CO2 emissions. So prior to the industrial revolution, we didn't have CO2 emissions. So that is the base level. Okay. So prior to industrial revolution, which started in 18th century, that is the base level. Only after the industrial revolution only CO2 emissions increased. So if at all the global temperature is increasing for more than 2°C of pre-industrial levels. So let us take this example. If industrial level global temperature 20°, na adu 22° ஆயிடுச்சுனா, global average temperature 22° ஆயிடுச்சுனா, that is the limit. So that is the logic is, if at all the temperature is increasing to 2°C above the previous pre-industrial levels, then we will have the catastrophic climate change effects, and that will lead to the destruction of the entire earth. So we have to reduce the increase of global warming to 2°C. Global warming 2°C குள்ள நம்ம குறைக்கணும். So that is what the target is. But whatever NDC is submitted by various nations under the Paris Agreement is not at all enough. And these nations are also not having any commitments. In Kyoto Protocol, any nation which is signing is having the binding commitment. If they are not following, then there will be sanctions. But in the Paris Agreement, there is no binding commitments. There is no commitments. Whatever you can, you do. That is what, and there is no penalty. So if there is no penalty and there is no commitment, then then it won't be implemented effectively. Just because traffic police is standing and he will impose fine, we are wearing helmet. Most of the people are wearing helmet only because of traffic police, not because of their own safety. So only if there is penalty, people will do. If there is no penalty and no commitments, means it won't be implemented. And surely in Earth, this entire world is going to face the climate change. So this author, according to the same intergovernmental planet for climate change, even if the temperature increases to 1.5 degrees C, that is itself is going to be very catastrophic. And for that itself, almost 70 to 90% of corals are going to be depleted. So, and we are telling that in the future we will be having good technologies like renewable energy, e-vehicles and all these things, and this technology will come and save us. But this technology is also not a panacea. This technology is going to support only. They are not going to bring in all the solutions. Technology can only support. They cannot prevent climate change. Climate change already it is started, and we can only reduce the intensity, and we cannot totally prevent it with the lack of cooperation from all over the world. People like Trump, they are bringing in this over nationalism and parochialism. Parochialism means suenalam. So ta undu ta naadu undu. Ye naattukku enna venumo adu mattum dhaan. I won't think for the entire world. So that is called as parochialism. Parochialism means thinking for only one's own self and one's own region, and not about the entire world. So climate change is not one nation's problem, it is a global problem. Even if 99 nations are even if 99 nations are taking actions and stopping climate change, means let us take one nation called China. If they are still continuing to emit CO2, means that will spoil the entire thing. So all the nations should come together and solve it. Only with a collaborative approach we can solve it, because it is a global problem. Not one a few group of nations alone cannot stop the climate change. Entire globe should contribute. If entire globe should contribute, means the so-called global superpowers like USA, Russia, or now emerging superpower China, these nations are also should be part of it. But Trump came, Obama signed it, but Trump went out of it. But we are having one future, that Joe Biden is telling that he will rejoin the Paris Agreement and he will strengthen it, because Joe Biden is a person who trusts science and he believes in the climate change. So we are expecting that Joe Biden will come and reverse whatever the changes done to Trump. So withdrawal of America was a very big setback for both Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement. Without America, this entire world alone, they cannot do it. So we need the contribution of such superpowers also. So that is what the future is. Nations should avoid parochialism and they should bring in a collaborative approach. So that is what the criticism given by the author. See, since most of the first attempters might not be knowing about the Paris Agreement and other things, that's why I discussed it in detail. Okay, so you further know. So I didn't talk about Paris Agreement completely. I just gave you the trailer about the Paris Agreement. In environmental textbooks and in Google, you please go and Google about the Paris Agreement. Those who don't know about Paris Agreement, Google Paris Agreement UPSC, and you will be getting the videos regarding that, or websites regarding that, and study. Okay, I just talked about the tip of the iceberg. So the next editorial is about the another controversial move by the Indian National Council for Indian Medicine. It stated that they are going to allow the Ayurvedic practitioners to do the surgery. Ayurveda படிச்சிட்டு வந்தவங்கள surgery பண்ண allow பண்ண போறாங்க. So that is again a very big concern. Almost all the allopathic doctors all over the world, they are starting to raise the issue. So that is this editorial. So Central Council for Indian Medicine recently said in a notification that they are going to allow the PG Ayurvedic practitioner, those Ayurveda students who studied PG, to do surgeries, and they also listed some 60 surgeries which can be done by them. So this is so now surgeries can be done only by the person who has studied MBBS and a post graduation and a specialization in the surgery. So they should be a specialist with respect to surgery. Only the person who studied MD can do the surgery now. Not everyone can do. Now allowing this Ayurvedic practitioner to do a surgery is a very big issue, health issue. That is what the most of the editorials were talking for the past 2 weeks. I took points from all these editorials and I'm going to discuss it. Okay, it is not only from this particular editorial. There was an article in the Sunday FAQ. There was an editorial in the previous week also. I took points from all these editorials and I'm discussing. So safety of the patient is the first requirement for medical practice. Any medical practice, the first thing the doctor will have in mind is safety. Patient safety is the rule one of the health. So if there is no patient safety, then there is no meaning of bringing in any changes. So any small surgical error. See, these Ayurvedic practitioners, so we'll talk about Ayurveda later. I'll just talk about the surgery now. Any surgical error, will cause a dramatic or disastrous result. Imagine a doctor, by mistake, he is cutting a different vein. What will happen? We will get paralysis. When a doctor is doing open heart surgery, by mistake, he cuts a different artery, means what will happen? Then we'll have heart attack and we'll die. So surgery, even if there is a small error, that will cause dramatic and disastrous results. That's why surgery is a very technical area and it needs expertise. Okay, so we should not allow those people who didn't study, who studied Ayurveda and without any knowledge with respect to modern medicine to do this. So that is what the author is telling. So surgery is something which needs both knowledge and skill. Okay, you need knowledge, at the same time you also need skill. Only if you are having knowledge and skill, you can do the surgery. If any doctor who wants to do the surgery, the doctor should finish MBBS and also a PG, for a PG degree like MD, or any mastery with respect to surgery in any particular field like gastro or ortho or any surgery. They should have studied in the PG. So the knowledge they are getting in their MBBS, the knowledge about the entire human body, how each and every organ works, how each and every cells work, and what are all the natures, and how, in what principles the human body works, everything scientifically they are learning in the MBBS degree, and they are getting the skills with respect to the particular surgery. So you cannot have a one size fit all doctor. That's why we are having specializations in the doctor. One separate doctor for ortho, because bones are a complicated thing. So in order to study bones, there should be a separate stream. Heart is a complicated thing. That's why we are having a separate cardio doctor. So likewise, we are having separate doctors for separate complex mechanism, because human body is a very complex thing and it is a most difficult, complicated machine in the world. So one of the most complex machine in the world is human body, and it is very difficult to understand. So it needs such mastery. That mastery is a very long process. Even though after finishing the PG, they will not be getting. If a person who is finishing PG, whether he is ready for surgery, means he is not ready for surgery. In PG, in practicals, they would have just seen the surgery, still they are not ready. So if a person wants to be a surgeon, means they will go as an apprentice to a senior doctor. They will go as an apprentice or as a junior doctor to a senior doctor. Whenever the senior doctor is doing the surgery, they will observe the surgery for many years. After the many years of observation, then only they will be allowed to do the surgery on the supervision of the senior doctor. These junior doctors will allow to do the surgery with the supervision of senior doctors. That will go on for another set of years. Then only after 10 years only they will become a trained surgeon. It is not like that, just like that tomorrow a person can become a surgeon. So it is a long process. It is an art, because human body is very complicated. At the same time, surgery is also interdisciplinary endeavor. That is, you need an anesthesian. One anesthesian is needed and one specialist is needed. If there is a heart surgery, means an anesthesian will come and he will put this anesthesia to to bring down the senses of the body and to alleviate the pain. And the specialist doctors, they will be doing the surgery. So sometimes more than one doctor, 3 or 4 doctors will do the surgery simultaneously. So it is an interdisciplinary endeavor. It is not an affair of one particular individual. And you need the knowledge about the complicated human body. A person should have the knowledge about the human body, health and disease. Only then they can be doing the surgery. You need a wide variety of knowledge. And also a person needs skill. Skill is very much important. This skill is acquired through apprenticeships for many years, and with practice and an exposure with a master. You need a master. Okay. So when the student is ready, the master will come in Pongal. So அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு மாஸ்டர் வந்து கண்டிப்பா வந்து தேவை in order to acquire the skill of the surgery. How to perform. So surgery is not only about a practice, it is also about a clinical judgment. You also should make decision. That it is about decision making, because there might be many new situations, there might be many complications. Only with the expertise you can make the decisions. So how to perform, when to perform, and when not to perform. So all these things are when to perform surgery and when not to perform surgery. That decision itself need a huge mastery, and that is called as clinical judgment. And there might be many novel situation. Novel means new situation. See, I forgot about to tell one thing. In GS paper 2, we are having government policies, and this is a government policy, and that's why it is in related there. And also in GS paper 4, ethics. I forgot to tell this point. In GS paper 4, we are having this topic called ethics, where we will be talking about the medical ethics. So this issue of allowing Ayurvedic people to do the surgery is directly related to the ethics under the medical ethics topic, and you can also have a case study regarding this. That's why that's what I wanted to tell. I didn't talk about the syllabus for the previous 3 editorials, but still it is understood. How to perform a surgery, when to perform, and when not to perform a clinic is a clinical judgment, and there might be many novel situations, new situations, where you need a sudden decision making, which will come only after the mastery. And US Health Department has listed the had made a list of 4,000 possible surgical error. Even if all the precautions an expert is doing, there are 4,000 ways in which a doctor can do a mistake in a surgery. So each and every surgeon should study about this 4,000 possible errors before he is becoming a surgeon. So so surgery is a very complicated process. It is not a simple process. So because they are going to act on a live human body, a person who is alive, they are going to act on his body. ஸோ மிஷின் வந்து ஆஃப் பண்ணி வேலை செய்யறது இல்லை, மிஷின் வேலை செஞ்சுட்டு இருக்கும்போதே இப்போ ரிப்பேர் பண்ணுறது. ஒரு வேலை மிஷின் வந்து ஆஃப் பண்ணிட்டு ரிப்பேர் பண்ணுறது வேற, ஆனால் மிஷின் ஓடிட்டு இருக்கும்போதே ரிப்பேர் பண்ணுறது வேற. சர்ஜரி இஸ் சம்திங் வேர் அ பர்சன் does a repair when the machine is working. So that is why it is a very complicated thing. Now we will come to Ayurveda. Now we saw about the surgery. So Ayurveda is an ancient system which was devised some 3,000 years ago. So some 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, this system of Ayurveda came and it was codified. And it is an old concept. At that time, we didn't have the superior knowledge regarding the human body, and we didn't know how human body will function, what are all the organs we are having. All these things we came to understood only after 18th century. We didn't have any knowledge about the human body. We didn't even know what is a cell in this particular time. So Ayurveda is a metaphysical concept. Metaphysical concept means something which is spiritual. So if you say, if you take Ayurveda will not accept the way the digestive system which we are drawing. So they will say that human body, the body is having the Panjabhudam, and we have to manage the Panjabhudam in order to be healthy. So spiritually it is good to listen and it is good for the well-being. But according to author, Ayurveda is a metaphysical concept. It is having many unscientific things within it, which is not yet proved. And they will talk about the soul, and they will be talking about the nadi. So nadi is something imaginary. Imaginary-ana vishayatha patti they will be talking. So all these imaginary things, they will be talking about the souls and the nodes and everything. Since it is a metaphysical concept, it is directly contradicting science, and practitioners are also fossiled in science. So practitioners are very reluctant to allow the modern medicine. They are fearing about the vaccine. Vaccine இல்லைன்னா என்ன வேர்ல்ட்ல பாதி பேர் செத்து போயிருப்பாங்க. பட் தே ஆர் ஃபியரிங் அகைன்ஸ்ட் வேக்சின். தே ஆர் ப்ரீச்சிங் அகைன்ஸ்ட் வேக்சின். வேக்சின் போட்டால் ஆபத்துன்னு. வேக்சின் போட்டால் நல்லது. வேக்சின் போட்டதுனால தான் நம்ம இன்னைக்கு போலியோ இல்லாமல், ஸ்மால் பாக்ஸ் இல்லாமல், சிக்கன் பாக்ஸ் இல்லாமல், எந்த நோயும் இல்லாமல் இருந்துகிட்டு இருக்கோம், டெட்டானஸ் இல்லாமல். ஸோ வேக்சின் இல்லைன்னா என்னது பாதி பாப்புலேஷன் செத்து போயிருக்கும். ஸோ தே ஆர் ஃபாசிலிஸ்ட் இன் ட்ரெயின். தே ஆர் வெரி பேக்வர்ட் திங்கிங் and they are stuck in train, and they are ignoring the modern development. And knowledge is a dynamic thing and it evolves with the time. Ayurveda, I'm not telling that Ayurveda is not of any use. Ayurveda is of any use. In order to have a good spiritual being, you have to keep your body healthy, and there are many things in Ayurveda which are still relevant. All those things should be evolving with the modern times, and it should complement the modern medicine. So Ayurveda should work along with the allopathic doctors, and it should be complementing the treatment procedure, and it should not be replacing it, and we should not be trusting the Ayurveda for fully. So that is what the argument given by the author. So that is one main thing. So now what is the logic behind this Central Council for Indian? Why they have given the notification? They are telling the reason that we are not having enough doctors who are working in the rural area. So since there are no doctors in the rural area, we need to have a more number of surgeons in the future. So by allowing the Ayurvedic practitioner to do the surgery, they will go and work in the rural area. But there is no hard and fast rule that they have to go and work in rural area, because once they are allowed to do surgery, they will also come and compete in the urban hospitals only. Because why doctors are not going to rural area and working there? Because in rural area they are not having enough infrastructure, they are not having enough exposures, and their lifestyle is very difficult because they would have been exposed to urban lifestyle. That's why they are reluctant to go. So government, if they want to encourage doctors to go to rural area, means they should make incentives to work in rural area. They should give more salary to people who are working in rural area. They should give more they should construct quarters for the doctors in order to live in the rural area. So by providing such incentive only, government should have government should have made the doctors to go to rural area instead of taking this particular decision of allowing the Ayurvedic doctors. So that is what the author is telling. So if at all it is made allowed, means who will be going to the Ayurvedic doctors? It is poor people who are not having enough money. They will only be going to Ayurvedic doctors because they will be charging less. So again, this will create a risk between the haves and have-nots. Now the rich people will be going to the medical practitioners, and the poor people will be left to do this Ayurvedic surgeries. And since they are not having all these qualities, we discussed about the 5 important qualities of a doctor and surgery. They will not be having all those qualities, and that will create a new epidemic of catastrophic complications, because they will not having mastery, and they will create a lot of complication in the human body. So since Ayurveda is patronized by the poor people, So again, this rich poor divide will lead to further complications for the poor people, because poor people are having the risk now, because they will be exposed to the Ayurvedic doctors. So government should instead try to increase the number of medical colleges. They should increase the number of seats. Instead of increasing the number of colleges and seats, government is doing this. Even though, see, increasing the medical colleges, increasing the seats, and incentivizing the doctor to work in the rural area, and finding all those toppers, 12th topper and 10th topper, who said that நான் டாக்டர் ஆகி மக்களுக்கு சேவை செய்ய போறேன், அந்த மாதிரி சொன்ன டாப்பர்ஸ் எல்லாரையும் ஐடென்டிஃபை பண்ணி அவங்கள தூக்கி ரூரல் ஏரியாவில் போடுறது, அந்த மாதிரி ஸ்டெப்ஸ் வந்து கவர்மெண்ட் எடுக்கணும். ஸோ ஜஸ்ட் கிட்டிங். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி ஸ்டெப்ஸ் கவர்மெண்ட் ஷுட் மேக், ஈவன் தோ இட் இஸ் a slow method. So it is safe and effective, and safety and effectivity is the most necessary of the medicine. So even though it is so slow, it is very safe. So that is what the author is telling. And the final editorial for the day is about the e-governance. So in this editorial, they are talking about the new e-governance model which was brought in by the government regarding the integrated child development program. I have taken this ground zero article after a long gap. In 8th edition we saw. So here they are talking about this important issue of integrated child development program and other nutrition related schemes and the e-governance model. Government brought in an e-governance model in order to implement these particular schemes, and because of the many problems in the e-governance model, these schemes are not being implemented. And e-governance we are having in syllabus. In syllabus we are having BS paper 2, we are having e-governance as a separate topic, and vulnerable sections also as a separate topic. So it is relevant in the GS paper 2, this particular article. That's why I took this for the discussion. So government created this server called ICDS CAS. ICDS means Integrated Child Development Services. CAS means Common Application Software. So I went to this ICDS CAS server. From that website only I took this screenshot. So this is actually screenshot which I took there. ICDS server is currently unavailable. It will be back shortly, and we will be online as soon as possible. There was a huge server error. So government decided to bring this server called ICDS CAS server in order to implement schemes like Poshan Abhiyan, Pradhan Mantri Matritva Vandana Yojana, and Pradhan Mantri Matritva Sahayog schemes, and ICDS scheme. So government decided to bring in this particular server to implement the schemes. Now the server is not working because of the poor maintenance of the government. If server is not working, because of that, the scheme's implementation has become further complicated. Already they are vulnerable people. Already they are leading a miserable life. Now because of such hiccups from the government side, it is further complicating the issue now. So I took the screenshot. Today only I took the screenshot. I went and checked whether it is working. It is not working. So the holes in the e-governance model brought in by the government and the related issues. So e-governance and the issues related is there in the syllabus. You take and see the syllabus. There will be this topic. So that's why it is very much relevant for our preparation. So Integrated Child Development Services, CAS, Common Application Software, is a data entry server. So what is the role of this server? See, government has brought in these particular schemes called Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. In Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan, what government is doing? Government is identifying the pregnant women and asking them to mandatory visit for the medical checkup. Okay, under this scheme, they are identifying the pregnant woman, and they are identifying, see, pregnancy has a lot of complications. If the pregnancy is complicated, then the child delivery will be very risky, and that might lead to maternal mortality or infant mortality. So that's why they have brought in the scheme in order to identify the pregnant woman, and they will be doing the medical checkup for all the pregnant women, especially the poor women, and they will be doing the medical checkup on every 9th day of a month. So every 9th day of a month means 9th August, 9th September, 9th October, or 9th December. So next checkup will be on the 9th December. So that is the upcoming checkup. So every 9th day of the month, there will be a common medical checkup for all the pregnant women in that particular village, and they will be checking if they are having any complications, and they will be keeping track of the complication in order to avoid the maternal mortality rate. That is the Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan. Then we are having Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. In Matru Vandana Yojana, they are identifying the pregnant woman and giving them 6,000 rupees, 5,000 plus 1,000. So it is 5,000 plus 1,000. 5,000 under Pradhan Mantri Matritva Vandana and 1,000 from the Janani Suraksha. So totally they will be getting 6,000. So study about all the schemes in the detail. I'm just giving you the brief idea. In Matru Vandana Yojana, they will be providing this money as a wage compensation. Because of this poor woman, who they will be daily wage earners. If a daily wage earner woman is getting pregnant, means she might not be going to work. They are not having maternal benefit, maternity leave and all. Because maternity benefit, they have to go and work on daily basis. So in order to provide them the wage compensation, government brought in the scheme for every pregnant woman of the below poverty line, she will be given 6,000 rupees as a wage compensation. An integrated child development scheme is for the improve the nutrition level of the children through the midday meal scheme is on the Anganwadi, and Poshan Abhiyan is to target the anemia. It is to target the anemia among the pregnant women, lactating mothers, adolescent girls, and the children. Okay, so it will be targeting anemia. For all the schemes implementation, government is using this particular software. In this software, what is happening means, government is giving tablets and phones to the Anganwadi workers. Anganwadi workers will, what they will do, they will, whenever the beneficiary is coming, they will enter the details of the beneficiary. If, for example, if a particular woman is having some medical complication, they will be entering it in order to do the checkups. So regular checkup and regular medical data and all the beneficiary details will be continuously uploaded in this particular portal. And government at the district level, state level, and central level, they will be monitoring the scheme through this portal, and they will be taking action. If at all a particular woman is not given any benefit means, it will be shown in the portal and the government will take action. So for that, they are brought in the portal and they have given tablets and phones, and through this they are implementing the scheme. Now what will happen, if every month they will be seeing the portal and they will be identifying, okay, in the area like this particular woman has not received the 6,000 rupees, this particular woman has not received the particular ration. So they will be having the entire database. In this particular house there is a child with anemia, so they will be having the entire database, and they will be going and taking the actions on the monthly basis. So for that only they brought in this particular portal. So what they will be doing, daily data entry of the beneficiary status, daily activity entry and photo updates. They will also upload the photos, nutritional status of the beneficiaries to keep track of the risky beneficiaries. Risky people are tracked money and they will be taking the actions. Now what happened because of the, so in this thing what they are doing, there is almost 14 lakh Anganwadis in India. 14 lakh Anganwadis. In this entire 14 lakh Anganwadis, they will be taking pictures of the daily, on a daily basis, they will be taking pictures and uploading in this particular server. So on a daily basis, 14 lakh Anganwadis are using this server and they are uploading pictures. If that is a need means, what government should have done? They should have bought the latest servers with high capacity. But government, when they are implementing the scheme, they will be focusing, but after that they will be leaving, because they will try to reduce the revenue expenditure. They will do capital expenditure, but they will try to reduce the revenue expenditure, so they won't do any maintenance. So that is what the logic is. They won't do any maintenance, so and it won't work in the future. So all the servers got fully used, and their capacity is limited now, because on a daily basis they are uploading photos and videos and everything, and the cloud is not enough, and government has not expanded the cloud capacity. That's why this entire scheme is under a very big threat now. It has halted. Okay, this delivery is halted due to the poor internet connectivity. Already these schemes are being implemented in the village areas. In the village areas there is poor internet connectivity, so government should have first taken internet to the entire villages, and then they should have brought such things. And there is server crash now because of the unavailability of the cloud storage, since the massive data was uploaded. So now what is happening? Both the workers and the beneficiaries are under frustration. At one side we are having Anganwadi workers, they are also getting affected because of this. And on the other side we are having beneficiaries like the pregnant women and the children. They are also getting affected by this because of this poor internet connectivity. So even they couldn't do their work and they couldn't get their benefits. Burden of double entry. Now they are in a severe threat that they don't know when the server will crash and when the internet connection will be good. So what they are doing now, they are forced to do the double burden. Double burden means what? They are also doing the entry in the website, and they are also doing the entry in the registers. So இந்த மாதிரி டபுள் பர்டன் ஆயிடுது. ஏன்னா எப்போ கிராஷ் ஆகும்னு தெரியாது, அதனால டபுள் பர்டன் ஆயிடுச்சு. முன்னாடி வரும் ரெஜிஸ்டர்ல மட்டும் பண்ணிருந்தாங்க. நாங்கள் கவர்னன்ஸ் டிஜிட்டலாக கொண்டு வந்த பிறகு now what is happening after this digital governance, they are not able to, they are doing the double work because the servers are crashing and they are not working. In order for the emergency purpose, they are also still using the registers. That is one thing. Now COVID related workload came and all these Anganwadi workers are being diverted. In this time now they are having double burden. At one side they are doing the COVID related lockdown and other things, on the other side they have to do all these schemes. So already COVID has increased the workload, and in this time when they are having double burden and already they are having COVID workload, government is not paying the incentives for the Anganwadi workers. Their salaries are not being credited on the right time. Imagine the condition. They are having huge workload and the salary is not being credited. How frustrating it will be. If the Anganwadi workers are getting frustrated, then how the schemes will be implemented? Government can formulate one of the best schemes in the world, but that scheme will work only if the civil servants and the Anganwadi workers who are working on the ground level, if they are efficient. If they are not efficient, the schemes will not work. So since we are the bureaucrats and we are going to enter in this atmosphere in the future, we have to know this. Only if the worker who is working on the ground is doing the job well, then only the scheme will be implemented. Otherwise, even though we are having any best scheme in the world, it won't be implemented. So Why there is a delay in the payment? Because the incentives are also calculated based on the software only. Based on the software, on the real-time basis, they are keeping the attendance and they are uploading the photo. Based on how much work they have done, they will be tracing using this particular software and this server, sorry, in this particular website, and they will be providing the incentives. Since this server is not working, they are not able to calculate, and that's why they are not giving. Calculate பண்ண முடியலன்னு கொடுக்காம இருக்காங்க. அநியாயமா இருக்கு கேட்கவே. So that is one thing. And at the end of the day, because of all these things, beneficiaries are also not getting benefited. They showed the two case studies of two particular women. They are not getting the benefits in this particular video. So, and lack of data sharing. If you could see in this, it is a one-way portal. In the one-way portal means only the Anganwadi workers can just enter the details. Okay, they cannot go and see the data. This data can be seen only at the higher levels, either by the district collector or by the state government officials, and it cannot be seen by the Anganwadi workers. These Anganwadi workers are the people who are working on the ground, but they have to get the orders from above, because only they are having the access to see the data on the real-time basis. They can just do the data entry. So since it is a one-way worker, whatever tabs and phones given to them, it is really one-way communication. Just they will do the data entry, and they cannot see the data in the real time. Because they are not able to see the data on the real time, it is hampering the decision making. And the state governments are also requesting central government to open up this particular data to the Anganwadi workers, but central government is not budging the recommendations. So what the state governments has done, they are bringing in their own softwares. So this particular system was brought in order to make integrate the entire nation and to understand the entire picture of the nation. Now it is again getting fragmented because each state government is bringing their own software, because this software is not working. So that is a major flaw in the e-governance model. So this particular criticisms we can write in any question related to e-governance. That is the beauty of this particular area, because the same problem will be there with respect to any e-governance scheme brought by the government. So we can use the same points wherever any e-governance scheme is coming. So that is the advantage of this particular detail. That's why I took it. So what we have to do, there is a need for convergence. See, addressing the issues of the pregnant woman is being dealt both by the Ministry of Health and by the Ministry of Women, but there is no convergence. Pregnancy related data are under the control of the Ministry of Health, but these schemes are being implemented by Ministry of Women. The scheme for the benefit of the pregnant woman is being implemented by Ministry of Women and Child Welfare, but the data related to pregnancy is in the Ministry of Health. So there is no convergence. So again, this is a top-down approach, because the local Anganwadi workers are not being given the data accessibility. Since they are not having the data accessibility, they are dependent from the orders from above. If the orders are from the above, it won't be implemented well. So it should be bottom up. So we see under the Poshan Abhiyan, government said that we are going to encourage the community participation. So go and study about the Poshan Abhiyan. See, all these 4 schemes are important. Go and study all these 4 schemes, okay, in detail. But they are telling that community participation will be encouraged in the Poshan Abhiyan, but they are still doing the top-down approach only. So bottom-up approach should come, and mothers group and panchayat committee should be formed. Mothers group means they should form a separate group of mothers in that particular. They should be identifying a group of women who are mothers, and they should be given the power in order to monitor whether the schemes are implemented, and they should also empower the panchayat committees to monitor the scheme. And government should give the benefits to the Anganwadi worker. This is very much important. It is as equal as giving the benefit to the pregnant woman. You have to give the salary on time to the Anganwadi worker who is already having huge burden. See, if the election is coming, means that particular worker should also do the election duty. If any government is bringing in a new scheme, means that worker only should go to entire village and do the awareness. If government is doing census, means she only has to go and do the census. So Anganwadi worker is also having the huge burden of job, but no benefits. So the salaries for the Anganwadi workers should increase. So this is what the recommendation given by the article. So thank you guys. We have come to the end now. Today we discussed the 5 important editorials. So please do the revisions. Please see the video again, take the notes, and please see the previous video on the Sunday. So live video on Saturday and a previous video on Sunday. So this should be the model for your revision. Then only you can remember the points. Our main aim is to not only read the editorial, but to take the points to the examination. So thank you guys. We have come to the end of this video. So if you are having any doubts, please put it in the comment section. We will see next week with another 5 editorials.